village to raise a child, and it takes almost like 1 million people to raise just one child to make that impact. So we are definitely on the field doing the work, and we're going to keep rolling up our sleeves and keep hoping that we're making an impact that we will one day see manifest when our scholars become adults.
That is some good points that you are sharing with us. Definitely some good points. So which leads me to the next question. And so we're going to kind of shift this a little bit, but we're going to talk about even on a personal base and business outcome. What are the root cause of limited patterns of thought that impact effective entrepreneur and solution-based personal and business outcomes?
I think a lot of times, Tammy, honestly, there are probably a lot of factors. I think some of those factors may include that negative self-talk. You know, oftentimes I've always heard people say we are really fearful at being successful. We're really fearful at what others may view and think of us. Sometimes it's comparing yourself to that other person in a totally different lane, and you've got to stay focused on your lane. You've got to stay focused on what you've been called to do, because at the end of the day, we all have a different purpose. Everyone has different gifts, different talents, different ways in which you are expected to use them here while you're on earth. Some of the thinking also goes towards just sometimes having a lack of faith, you know, fear of failure. And it's humanistic of us. It's quite naturally, even as I was out writing the book, I wasn't really sure about, how many books could I sell? Would any other school districts pick them up? As I say, you have to feel that fear and move forward anyway and worry about those things later. So a lot of times it's that negative self-talk. Sometimes you're comparing yourself to another person, maybe in a different industry, sometimes in the same industry. Sometimes the interest that you take or the interest that you may have, you may find out that what it is you're trying to do and you want to do may be so saturated, but nevertheless, no one can do it like you. So I would just encourage individuals to stay focused on you and, you know, not looking to the left and not looking to the right. Just simply looking forward ahead and keeping it slow and steady, because slow and steady always wins the race. You do what works for you. Surround yourself with a great support system, so when you have those challenging moments, those challenging days, you've got your support system there to uplift you, to remind you of your why and why you're doing what you're doing, because even as educators, we have to lean on each other at times and remind ourselves why we became teachers, why we became educators, why we wanted to impact lives. And so I would just encourage anyone that's shooting for their dreams and their goals to simply stay focused on and do what you can with what you have, and surround yourself with positive individuals who are going to really be there, authentic in their thinking and very authentic in wanting to see you cross the finish line successfully.
That is beautifully said, because fear immobilizes us. Fear paralyzes us. And
Absolutely.
so we have to avoid that negative self-talk and even the voices that sometimes we internalize as well. And so we have to remain positive in our mindset, which you actually shared. And when you do that, you are living by design and not by default.
Yes. Yes, and absolutely.
Absolutely. So we do not want to have the victim type of mindset that can cripple our progress. But once we change our mindset and say, okay, this is how it's going to be, I'm going to have these positive images, and not get caught up in what you see other people are doing, but create that vision for yourself. And
Absolutely.
That's why it's so good, even as young minds, to even have them to have visualization and vision boards. So even they could see themselves excelling, even as they growing and getting older, they could see, okay, well, this is what I want to do. I may not have a clear picture, but have them have these type of pictures and these images in their mind and say, okay, this is where I'm heading.
Right. Have a plan in place and create that roadmap, create that vision for yourself. As a mom of a 13 and 14-year-old teenagers, I actually sat down with both of my daughters, and we created vision boards. I have one personally, and they were kind of curious, what's that? What does it do? So I decided to use it, of course, being an educator, I decided to use it as a teachable moment and invited a friend who actually does vision boards to come out and privately, one-on-one, speak to the girls about what it is, how it works. Oftentimes there's something so phenomenal about seeing that photogenic picture, waking up and seeing this is the type of house that I want to live in, this is the type of car that I want to drive maybe a year or two from now. This is the kind of money that I want to make, or I want to be able to build this and do that. So having that visual right there in front of your face and literally waking up to that every morning is very phenomenal, even if it's just something simple as a positive affirmation, because, again, in this day and age, I teach even to first graders and second graders. I even teach children, period. Sometimes you're going to have to be your own cheerleader, and that's okay. Doesn't take away any value from you, but it certainly adds value, and it adds more value because you're cheering for yourself. And we're not taught to cheer for ourselves. We're so codependent upon other people to validate us and cheer for us. And when they don't, we think something is wrong with us, and that's so far from the truth. I think it's more empowering and more powerful when you learn to cheer for yourself, and you can still cheer for everyone else in the process.
That is really deep, what you're sharing with us. And that tends to help expand our consciousness. And even when you think about metacognitive strategies, it helps students to bring them a certain awareness of their understanding of their own thought process. And it tends to bring them in a high order of thinking, that they'll be able to analyze and have this type of cognitive type of progress in their thinking and their learning abilities. And so, so this is truly shifting their thought process. And I love what you mentioned about the vision board, even for yourself and even for the kids, because it gives you something to continue to hope for. But not only about we have to have the vision, but we have to watch the words that we speak out of our mouth as well. And
Absolutely.
we have to speak positive, life-affirming words over our own life and over children's lives too. You know, that you are going to be someone. And so, because like we're saying, a lot of the school systems, and not just in the school systems, this is happening in the churches and the workforces as well, that so many people are being bullied. Even on cyberspace, and people are being bullied. So a lot of times kids are coming to school and they're hurting, and because they have this fear factor of being talked about and criticized. And so we have to be mindful of those things that the kids are facing, in the school system, as well as, even around the world, even adults are dealing with that, like I say, in the workforce and in the churches as well. So these are very good points that you are sharing with us, and we truly, truly appreciate that. And you are an entrepreneur, speaker. You have a courageous spirit like Harriet Tubman, and an advocating voice like Barbara Jordan of education. Also, you have been an educator for 19 years, and you are the author of 187 School Day Challenge. And I'm aware that you're a committed-minded, professional, performance-driven, extremely energetic woman, producing your own unique work, and you have such a compelling vision. What is your compelling vision of how to develop leadership strategies?
I think how to develop leadership strategies, you definitely have to almost write a mission statement, what I like to call a life statement about yourself. Because as being any leader, a leader definitely has to possess vision, because you're leading not only yourself, you're leading others, whether they choose to follow or not. And you have to have a place that you're leaving from with a goal in mind of where you're going to. I can definitely tell you, even when writing the 187 School Day Challenge, the vision for me with that whole project was the statistics are staggering when it comes to children who are being bullied. So my goal and my vision for that was to simply put an end to the bullying, not put an end to it, but try to reduce the number of suicides. Because as I always say, when children know what they are good and great at, there's no time to be bullied. There is not time for them to go and bully anyone else. And so that leadership side of me when writing that book really was not about me. It was to lead kids and even adults, too, into a whole other entity that we rarely didn't even tap into anymore. And it's funny that you mentioned bullying. I heard you mention it several times, and that was really the inspiration for why I wrote the book. I myself, who was bullied as a kid, probably in 4th and 5th grade, as I can remember, it just led me to take leadership in that aspect and to try to put a stop to it, or at least to try to reduce the number of suicides. When I hear an 8-year-old, when I hear kids wanting to end their lives because they either lack coping skills or they're lacking self-esteem issues, that tells me, not only as an educator but as a parent, just simply as an American citizen, that is a staggering problem, and we have got to answer the call to it. But a leader definitely has to have vision. And so my vision is to end the suicide rate among young children. And back then, we used to see it only in adults. You would only see it maybe in high schoolers. But it's so common and it's so prevalent now that you're starting to see it from a 3rd grader. You're starting to see it from 10-year-olds. And this is so unheard of. And so for me, I decided to take the call, to step up to the plate and take ownership and take leadership when it comes to leading our kids down the right path and leading them to a life of joy and equipping them and empowering them. So definitely the number one thing that a leader must possess, a leader has to possess vision. And a leader really doesn't have time to get caught up in who likes it and who doesn't, because you've been called to simply lead, which means sometimes as a leader you're going to have to make rough choices that you may not want to make. You're going to make decisions that everyone does not agree with, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to have a sound mind and a peace in your heart that says, I truly did what I was called to do, which was to lead. I'm sure Dr. King in his days, as he led this country through some phenomenal visions, that everyone didn't get on board, and we know that. But nevertheless, he stayed the course and he led. And that is to be applauded.
Yes, it is. And even what you mentioned about suicide, we have been speaking about this on this radio platform. And in 2016, the second leading cause of death in the U.S. for people between the ages of 10 and 34 was suicide.
Suicide.
And suicide is on the rise. And in 2015, 44,193 Americans died by their own hand. Something needs to be done. And by someone listening to what you sharing on this radio broadcast, it's going to save someone's life. Because just for them hearing this is going to give them a sense of hope and faith to continue to press through. Because their child may be experiencing some sort of suicidal thoughts or bullying. So I appreciate you sharing this with the listening audience, and even what you mentioned about leadership strategies. That is tremendous, and that kind of compelling insight into character, that teaches us truly how great leaders are fashioned and forged. And even you have given us such a bold and brilliant grand strategy of action that can be executed by anyone who's willing and able to develop a person sense of integrity, intelligence, intense work ethics that will allow them to take the will of their lives and drive forward towards their own best destiny.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I truly believe, and I still hold true to that to this day. And it even works for adults. When you discover your gift or your gifts, and when you discover your talent or your talents, it is amazing what will unfold for you, because now you've recognized, I'm good at this, I'm great at that, and it gives you something to work towards. It keeps you busy. And so personally, I took the journey myself, being in education 19 years. Some days we have great days. Some days we're frustrated as educators. That's just the truth. And I began to just question, am I really cut out for this? Do I really want to stick with this? Is it something that, God, do you really want me to do this? Because some days are really tough, and you take a lot of blows, but nevertheless, the flip side is that there's some good in it as well. And I figured as an